Hello friends, my name is Shreyasri Shaha. I am from Team Nursing Extra Mileage. Today's topic is Introduction to Psychology. So psychology is derived from two Greek words, psyche and logos. Psyche means mind, soul or spirit, and logos means the study of mind. To define, psychology is the science of human and animal behavior. It includes the application of behavioral science to human problems. The definition is suggested by Walter Boas Pillsbury. So these are the major landmarks in the development of psychology. In the year 1879, Wilhelm Wundt inaugurates the first psychology laboratory in Leipzig, Germany. In 1890, Principles of Psychology is published by William James. In 1900, Sigmund Freud develops the psychodynamic perspective. In 1904, Ivan Pavlov wins Nobel Prize for work on fundamentals of learning. In 1905, Binet and Simon developed the intelligence test. 1906, first psychology department was established at Calcutta University. 1953, B.F. Skinner publishes Science and Human Behavior, advocating the behavioral perspective. In 1954, Abraham Maslow publishes Motivation and Personality, developing the concept of self-actualization. 1954, the Department of Clinical Psychology started in National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience, Bengaluru, Karnataka. In 1989, National Academy of Psychology, India is founded. In 2000, new subfields such as clinical neuropsychological and evolutionary psychology is established. 2002, psychologist Daniel Kahneman is awarded the Nobel Prize for his research on how people make judgments in the face of uncertainty. In 2014, John O'Keefe, May-Britt Moser and Edward Moser share the Nobel Prize for their discovery of nerve cells in the brain that enable a sense of place and navigation. Coming to the perspective of psychology. Now we have various perspectives of psychology. To the first is behavioral perspectives. In behavioral perspectives, we come to know that how, according to the psychology, our behavior is affected. We are a variety of individuals living in the country, and each individual is having different types of behavior according to their own perspective and personality. Second is biological perspective. Apart from our personality, there is something which we derive from our parents or from our genetical heredity. So from our parents, we derive some characteristics, some quality of our character which is determined as the biological perspective. Third is the cognitive perspective. Cognition generally means our thinking, thought and memory orientation pattern. So cognitive perspective basically defines that how we are thinking, we are judging how much memory we can hold and how much intelligence we have. Fourth is the social perspective. Depending on which society we are growing up, the social perspective of psychology is determined. The social perspective mainly say that if we are born in a society which encourages a certain culture, then we generally normalize that culture and it embarks on our personality. The fifth is the developmental perspective. Developmental perspective generally means that how we are developed, how our upbringing is taken place, and how we have crossed all the maturational stage of our life. How we have crossed teenage, how we have crossed adolescence, how we have spent our childhood, that determines what kind of personality or what kind of psychology we are going to have. Humanistic perspective. Humanistic perspective generally defines how we perceive the world, how we generally see the world, and how we determine what are the situations we are facing from day-to-day life. The last is the psychoanalytical perspective. This psychoanalytical perspective, it mainly focuses on Freud's psychoanalytical theory, which we will study later, but it generally focuses that what are the modification or what are the features, what are the ways we have gone through our childhood and how our brain development how our personality is affected by the kind of upbringing we have faced through. Next is the scope of psychology. Psychology studies, describes and explains the behavior of living organisms. It describes all types of life activities and experience, whether cognitive or affective, implicit or explicit, conscious, unconscious and subconscious of a living organism. It studies not only human behavior but also human experiences, language and other form of communication. It is applicable to all the living creatures created by the Almighty, irrespective of their species, caste, color, age, sex, mental or physical state. Next is the branches of psychology. Psychology has generally got two branches. First is the pure psychology, next is the applied psychology. In pure psychology, we generally have the general psychology, abnormal psychology, social psychology, physiological psychology, parapsychology, geopsychology, developmental psychology and experimental psychology. Generally, these type of psychology deals with the psychology of the human behavior and the human body. First, we can say that general psychology, it deals with the fundamental rules and principles of psychology. It mainly contains the theory of psychology in relation to the study of behavior or a normal adult. Abnormal psychology deals with the behavior of individual which are unusual. Social psychology deals with the group of behavior and interpersonal relationship of people with others. Physiological psychology describes and explains the biological and physiological basis of behavior. Parapsychology deals with extrasensory perception, causes of rebirth, telepathy and allied problems. Geopsychology describes and explains the relationship of physical environment, particularly weather, climate and soil, with the behavior of an individual. Developmental psychology describes the process and factors that influence the growth and development of a child into an adult, mature human being. Experimental psychology, this branch of psychology studies the ways and means of carrying out any kind of psychological experiments using scientific methods. So these are the types of pure psychology. Coming to the second part, that is applied psychology. In applied psychology, we have educational psychology, clinical psychology, industrial psychology, legal psychology, military psychology and political psychology. In educational psychology, it deals mainly to apply the principle of psychology, theories and techniques to human behavior in terms of any educational situation. For example, it determines in which career a person should choose according to his or her personality types and intelligence. Next is clinical psychology. This branch of applied psychology mainly describes the causes of mental illness, abnormal behavior of a patient and suggests the treatment and effective adjustment of the person into the society. Next is the industrial psychology. This branch of psychology mainly studies the human behavior in relation to the industrial revolution or the industrial movement. They also counsel employees within the organization who need help regarding their personal problem. Next is the military psychology. Military psychology is concerned with the use of psychological principles and techniques in military science. For example, how to keep the morale of the soldiers and citizens high during the wartime, or what are the consequences the soldiers feel after a war is taken place. Next is the legal psychology. In legal psychology, it deals with the behavior of person like criminals, prisoners, clients or witnesses with the help of using psychological principles and techniques. It mainly finds out the root cause of crime, offense, dispute or any kind of legal cases. Political psychology. This branch of psychology relates itself with the use of psychological principles and techniques in studies of politics and deriving political gains. Next is the methods of psychology. Now there are different types of methods of psychology or by which we can understand the psychology of a person. The first is the introspection or self-observation method. It is one of the oldest methods of psychology, which means to look within. It is also known as self-observation method, where an individual looks within himself or herself and understand what type of personality or what kind of psychological aspect the person holds. The patient is generally asked to report how he or she feels during a particular situation which is affecting the individual most. The next is the observation method. In observation method, it is the science of observing a behavior or an individual in a particular situation. Here, psychologist observes the behavior of the client when the client is exposed to any kind of natural condition or any kind of artificial condition which is affecting the human mind or which is responsible for any kind of reaction the person is facing. Third is the experimental method. Experimental method is considered as the most scientific and objective method of studying behavior. Now the word experiment comes from a Latin word which means to try or to put or to conduct a test. In experimental studies, the psychologists study the cause and effect relationship. Suppose, for example, the psychology want to study the cause of smoking into the mind of a human being. So here the psychologist is studying the cause of smoking and also the effect of smoking into the human mind. Next is the survey method. In survey method, generally the psychologist takes some opinions, attitudes, healthcare needs, or through any kind of checklist, asks some question to the client and collects their answers and collect their opinions and forms a basic personality trait of the individual. Next is the genetic or developmental method. In genetic or developmental method, psychology studies not only the behavior of the client at a particular time but also his development from birth to death. How the client has been brought up, how is the upbringing of the client, and what are the genetic traits that the client is carrying from their parents. Last is the clinical or case history method. This method is generally used by clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, psychiatric social worker in child guidance clinic or any kind of mental health clinic. It aims at studying the cause and basis of people's anxieties, fear and personal maladjustment. Here, the psychologist derives certain case studies and with the help of case studies tries to solve the problem of the client. Next, we will study about the application of psychology. Now, psychology is a vast subject which has got its application into various fields. First is self-development. In self-development, as I have said in the earlier slide, that in self-development, the psychology helps to understand our own behavior or it helps us to introspect into our own characteristics. In military, psychology helps to understand helps to study the mind of the military warfare, the soldiers, and it also helps to understand the motive of the soldier and it helps to strengthen their mental ability during the wartime. In guidance and counseling, psychology helps us to solve the problems of the people during any kind of conflict. In politics, psychology helps to understand the mind and the behavior of a certain species of people in a political area or in respect to certain political issues such as riots, wars and any kind of human industrial revolution. In criminology, the psychology helps to understand the mind and the behavior of criminals, prisons, rapists or murderers. In business and industry, Psychology helps to understand the mind and the behavior of the industrial people, and it also helps to counsel the people who faces burnout during their working time. In medicine, psychology helps to understand the psychic causes or the mental causes that is rooted in the development of any kind of physical problems. The physical problems is strongly related to the psychological mind. Here, the psychology helps to study the anxiety, fear which a client is developing in order to develop a physical problem. Last, in education, psychology helps to understand the behavior and mind of a student. It also helps the student in order to choose what kind of career they want in their future. Next is the relevance of psychology in nursing. First is the psychology helps the nurse to understand her own self. It helps the nurse to understand the patient. It helps the nurse to recognize abnormal behavior, understand other people, provide quality care to the patient. It helps adjust to the situation. It helps to change the environment. It helps for effective studying, and it helps in readjustment. Thank you.